Okay, this is going to be Communism is Total Foolishness, Part 7. Part 7, and I'm going to talk about private property. Okay, private property is a basic human right. It's a God-given right because it comes from the Ten Commandments. And we who are Judeo-Christian, whether you're Jew or Christian, whether you believe in the both the Old Testament and the New Testament, or you just believe in the Hebrew Bible, whether you're a Jew or a Christian, a Jew, Catholic, or Christian, you believe in the Ten Commandments because you believe in Exodus chapter 20, where God gave Moses the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. Okay, so God gave Moses the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. We accept that by faith as Jews, Catholics, and Christians. We accept that by faith. An article as a divine revelation of faith. And the Ten Commandments, therefore, are God-given laws to mankind, and therefore they have embedded within them God-given rights, God-given human rights to mankind. In Exodus 20:15, it says, "Thou shalt not steal." In Exodus 20:17, it says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house," or anything that is thy neighbor's. Okay? Well, communism or socialism or collectivism, okay, is just a sophisticated way of saying steal everything from everybody in the country and give that power to the government. Take everybody's stuff away from them. Give that power to the government and only let them have just a little bit so that they can survive. That's essentially what communism boils down to when it comes to the subject of property, which is really honestly the heart of communism. Remember, Karl Marx himself said in the Communist Manifesto, the theory of the communists may be summed up in the single sentence: abolition of private property. He wants to steal your stuff. Now, he's not going to leave you totally homeless, but if you live in a nice house that you slaved for all your life, Karl Marx wants to take that away from you. Communism wants to take that away from you. Socialism, collectivism wants to take that away from you and give the majority of it, liquidate the asset, turn it into money, and give the majority of it to Washington, D.C., and then leave you with like a communist apartment that's falling apart and dilapidated and hardly ever has a communist plumber or a communist repairman to come and make repairs on your dilapidated communist apartment complex. That's what they want to do. They're not going to leave you totally homeless, but almost. I mean, it's to the point where it's depression, it's suicidal, it's you've lost everything that you've worked so hard to get. Communism actually tries to frame this as justice. They call themselves, they look upon themselves like some sort of a Robin Hood figure, like some sort of a social justice figure. The reality is the whole thing's a scam. Communism is a scam. It's a scam. They brainwash people in order to scam them. It's Machiavellianism in a nutshell. It's deception and cruelty to manipulate and control. The ends justifies the means. And by the way, that ends justifies the means phrase, if you really look into that expression, the ends justifies the means, that phrase originated with a Russian communist revolutionary. He was a Russian communist Bolshevik. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but yeah, that is a communist expression. The end justifies the means. And it's directly related to Machiavellian thought. You deceive people in order to act cruelly upon them, in order to conquer them, to beat them, and to win. And the winner in the communist setup is the people who work in the government. Those are the winners, the people who work at the top in the upper echelons, as it says in Animal Farm by George Orwell. No, In communism, 90% of society is a loser and 10% of society is a winner. You might say, well, that sounds no different than capitalism. It is a lot different than capitalism, because in capitalism, it's more gradated. It's more gradated than that. In capitalism, sure, there's 10% of society is a billionaire, but there's also other levels of success that you can achieve reasonably if you would just get into entrepreneurship and go into business for yourself. Communism makes all of that impossible. There is no financial mobility, no social mobility, no rags to riches within communism. Capitalism allows for that. The American dream allows for that. Communism is just a massive scam, deceiving people and using racial rhetoric, oftentimes using racial rhetoric to unite people, to get people angry about the way things are. And all it is just misplaced anger. It's a scam. It comes out of the devil's mind, out of Karl Marx's Faustian mind. It's evil, and it goes totally contrary to the Ten Commandments. It doesn't only go against thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. It also goes against the other Ten Commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, because it turns the communist leader into a god. Thou shalt not make unto thyself any graven image to bow down to it. It oftentimes makes the communist leader into a painting or a portrait that you must have everywhere. Giant head figures of Stalin or Mao Zedong or Lenin, and they worship it. Thou shalt not kill. There's non-military killing going on, non-military, non-rules of war, non-terms of engagement sort of just killing, just assassinations going on in communism. And everything's like A-okay because at least communism got served. I mean, it's a cult. If you really get down to it, communism is a cult. It's a cult. And it's brainwashing, and it's a scam. And it's just stealing things from people. So Dr. John R. Rice says, the Bible clearly acknowledges that private ownership is a fact endorsed and supported by the Lord. And the Ten Commandments are against communism because they teach it is wrong to steal. It is wrong to even covet that which belongs to another man. That is one reason why collectivism is a sin. It is contrary to certain principles that are inherent in the nature of man. It is a contradiction of the plain teaching of the Bible about what is right and wrong. He goes on further to say, private property ownership is a human right. God requires respect for it. People may earn and buy property. People may buy it and keep it and use it. So the American dream is the pursuit of private property, whether it's home ownership, land ownership, cars. The American dream is the pursuit of private property based on the Ten Commandments in the Bible. And I'm going to add this in there. Private property is most easily acquired through entrepreneurship, through going into business for yourself, contracting out projects, finding customers, cranking out projects. Jesus and the apostles came from that. Apostle Paul was a tent maker, but they weren't rich, but that's the Bible pattern. You don't see go to college, get a job as the Bible pattern normally. It's go into business for yourself, learn a trade, go into business for yourself, apprentice under a person, learn a skill, go into business for yourself, go find some customers. That's the way. That was Jesus's mindset when he talked about making money and stuff. Look at Matthew 20. The kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder. Well, it's talking about a homeowner, the guy who owns his own property, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. He owns a vineyard, a little farm, a wine farm, a vineyard. And when he agreed with the laborers for a penny a day, he sent them into his vineyard. So he hires people to do work for him. It's Jesus. That's Jesus's mind. And that's New Testament, which is just carryover of the Old Testament, the wisdom of Solomon, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship. Larry Burkett's book, The Word on Finances. Larry Burkett, Business by the Book. Biblical, evangelical understandings of going into business for yourself and hiring employees as it becomes necessary. This is how you're supposed to make money in the Bible. The idea of going to college to get a job is not taught in the Bible. That is not taught in the Bible. That's come into American culture over long periods of time. There's, as long as colleges have been around, people have been going to colleges to get jobs. But in the times past, it was usually to be a government worker, a lawyer, or a doctor. That was it. That was it. Lawyers went to college to get their job. Doctors went to college to get their job. Everyone else just learned on the job. It was on-the-job experience, on-the-job training. Whether you were a tent maker, whether you made tents, whether you made houses, you don't go to college to do that stuff. You just learn it from other people who are older than you, and then you go into business for yourself. That's the normal pattern you see in the Bible. Entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship. And the sad reality is that communism plays into the whole concept of go to college, get a job. It does. Because the more people follow this model of go to college and get a job, the easier it is to brainwash people into thinking that communism might just be better. Communism might just be that grass that's greener on the other side. It's not. It's not. See, you're already following an unbiblical model by going to college and get a job mentality and not thinking through years and years when you're in your high school years about what kind of a business you're going to start. And that's the way it was in Bible times. When you were in your high school years, when you were in your teenage years, your parents trained you up in the way that you should go, aka not just to keep the commandments, but to think about what kind of a business you're going to get into when you become a man. It wasn't go to college and get a job. But go to college, get a job sets people up for frustration, which then in turn leads to thoughts about communism. Well, maybe communism would be better. I think I'm ready for a change. You know what? No, here's what's better. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. And go into business for yourself.